Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well this morning. It's another day, another dollar. Got to make one adjustment here. I hate this particular layout. There we go. Much better. I don't like seeing myself so large on the screen. Um, no, I'm fine. The theme song is perfect. Thank you very much. But it stays. Um, I want to address one thing again. It seems like I feel like a broken record, but I think it's necessary to address it anyway because we have new people showing up all the time. And whether or not this particular person just signed up for 5 minutes and said what they had to say and then left and won't be back, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But I want you to just read this real quick. Um, so the statement I ran into this morning as soon as I got into the studio was this: I thought I would share this with my brothers and sisters in the Lord, and gave a verse and said, whether it's right in the sight of God to listen to you more than God, you judge. Um, Again, for all who might be latecomers and those who might be deaf, um, those who may not be as adapted to listening as others, those who may just have their own agenda to follow and not actually listen. Um, I don't ever recall ever telling anyone to listen to me. If I have ever said, "Listen to me," um, then we have problems. Um, I don't recall ever saying that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've said the opposite of who to listen to is anybody but me. Um, if I am wrong about that, please please let me know if I've ever said to anyone to listen to anybody but God. Um, it's ironic because hence is the topic today. What about God? Um, so, nah, well, you clarify it because you're the one that left it. Okay, Bruce, you're the one that left it, not me. Not me. Pretty sure I can read. I can still read. Last time I checked, I can still read. I can still read. Okay, it's right there. Okay, whether it's right in the sight of God to listen to you more than God. Maybe leave some clarification next time. If you got good working breaks, okay, good for you. So hear me out today. What about God? Um, we have a, a a tendency. Let me bring the mic a little closer here. We have a tendency in the world today to be afraid of offending men that are purposefully, willingly, and blatantly living a life that's against God. It's an affront to Him. And we seem to have this fear of saying something to them that might hurt their feelings or make them believe that what they're doing is not quite right. And then we don't want to dissuade them from God. We don't want to step on their toes. We don't want to, hey, Andrea, we don't want to offend. You can't call them what they are. You can't say what they are to their face. You have to say it nicely. Meanwhile, many of us sit by while those same people say some pretty insane things about God. It seems like we're fine with them insulting the person that saved us from eternal death, but we are afraid of offending them because of God. Like, I don't get the, like, you're afraid of them missing God while they're insulting God to your face, and you do nothing to defend God. But if someone were to come up and call them out on it by calling them what they are, you will shut that person down for insulting and harming the other one's emotions that is blatantly sinning against God. I recently saw a drag guy, man thinking he's a female, mental problems, those people, on a show. And what he said was, hmm, what he said was so ridiculously insulting and offensive and such an affront to God that I don't know how a person hearing it who believed in God cannot slap out at that person. Okay. Um, I don't even know the person's name, don't care to know their name, but this is what he said. He said he loves Jesus. He said he loves Jesus. Who doesn't love Jesus? He says he loves Jesus because any man who could get nailed for 3 days straight and come back for more is a guy he can get behind. That's how he said it. And the whole theater erupted in laughter. The panel he was sitting with, the studio audience, all laughter. Now, if I were to go in front of him and say, any man who could dress like a woman and sleep with a man deserves nothing but hellfire and brimstone to burn on his carcass for the rest of his life, that'd be offensive, right? I'd be the offensive one. If I were to look at him dead in his face and say, well, if that's the way you view it, then maybe hell really is your home and that's what you deserve. Enjoy the ride. That would be offensive. If I were to go whole hog and say a homosexual like yourself that has no morals to their life deserve nothing but hellfire, and I hope you burn there for the rest of eternity, that would be offensive to him. I'd be in the wrong for saying it like that because I need to be nice. I'd need to be nice, right? Because I'm the Christian, I need to be nice. If I were to look him in his face and said, you any disgusting acts need to be burned in hellfire, that'd be mean. And when you receive the disease that's coming to you in your mortal body, welcome it with open arms, the same way you can talk about my God, that'd be offensive, right? Or you and your nasty cohorts can burn for eternity. That would be offensive. You get where I'm going with this? We would be told, don't talk ill about them while they talk ill about the person that you supposedly love with all your heart, soul, body, and mind, that saved you from the grave, transformed your life. You're supposed to just let that go. We're supposed to let that go to the point where we don't even acknowledge God's greatness before them and the truth about God before them. We have relegated man to have a higher position of respect than God does. Let's just be honest. We don't respect God anymore. We don't respect God anymore. And I mentioned this already, Milton. My speech is definitely seasoned with salt, a lot of salt, like a real good dose of salt. And I don't care about the wounds either that it goes into. I don't care about your wounds. And when my salt goes in there, it's not my problem. It simply isn't my problem. We have become afraid of the truth. And so what we've done is we've taken truth a little bit and mixed it with social constructs and what man says, and then we call that the new truth. We call it a new truth. We don't really care. We don't really care. We've now created a God who is passive. We've created a God who is soft. We've created a God who is all allowing. We've created a God who we can say whatever we want to and not care. We've created a God where we can assume that whatever we do, he has to accept and forgive. And not only that, but he has to continually accept it because he's love. We've created a God where he is no longer the one that burned Sodom and Gomorrah. Some reason he's just flipped the script and become Santa Claus. Somewhere along the line, he became Santa Claus and was no longer God of all. And so we come up with ridiculous things like, I'm a sinner, but I'm saved. And I still sin, but God understands. I try not to sin, but it just happens. But God understands. I told you that I have a couple of TikTok accounts. And the algorithm keeps flipping back and forth between um, Hebrew Israelites and Christianity. But recently there was a guy that came across I follow him on TikTok. And I asked him a specific question, but I never got a specific answer back. I asked him about unconditional love from God. Everybody but him responded. What I have been noticing is a growing trend toward the ultra understanding of people at the expense of the godhood of God. The ultra understanding of people at the expense of the godhood of God. Let me ask a question. If you say you follow and you have accepted the new life that Christ offers, okay, but there is a sin that is still a vice for you, listen carefully to my question. If there's a sin that's still a vice for you, where in the hierarchy of importance is God in your life? If after you say you've seen your state, I mean your whole state before God, if this is the prerequisite for coming to him is that we see who we are before him, which means you see your entirety of who you are before him, that there is nothing good that you bring, you have nothing to offer, nothing, right? If that's the truth, what vice is so vital to you and important to you that it's difficult to let go of for the sake of God? Because I keep hearing it that, you know, I fall and I do my best to get up, and I still have things I'm trying to let go of. They say things like that, trying to let go of, or it's difficult to let go of it. It's hard to shake. And we try to say things that will aid us in our belief about who we are and that God understands me. He understands my weakness. And then we call it, yeah, my weakness, and he is strong. And so when I'm weakest and I fall, I find his strength to rise again. Tell me if I'm wrong that you have, am I the only one that's heard this? Am I the only one who's heard anything like that before, where you say, in my weakness, he is strong? And they equate the weakness as repetitive, constant falling, only to prove God's strength. The weakness is not in your constant struggle. The weakness is in your inability. That's what you should have encountered when you first came to God. That weakness, not a susceptibility to a certain sin. Your weakness is that you're incapable of saving yourself. That is the truth. You are not capable of saving yourself, hence why we needed Jesus. And if you don't come to him understanding that you're worthless, you have nothing to bring to the table, there's nothing worth saving, salvaging about your old life, it must be killed, it must be put to death. If you don't come with that understanding, you're going to try and pick out of the wreckage things that you think are too difficult for you to let go of, and you'll walk with them and you'll say, my whole life I've struggled with this, and God is helping me to understand that it's a struggle, and I'm just gonna keep struggling with it. No, you are holding on to that. God ain't letting you fight that to show his power. God didn't tell you to hold on to that. He never told you to do that. That's a you thing. That is you negating his power from the very get go. You never gave everything over because you liked what you were doing. We all had, let's just be honest. I can tell you from personal experience that what I thought was following God was not following God. Okay. I was lying to myself. I was not following God. I followed my version of God, my watered down, sissified, soft, infinitesimal version of God. I wasn't following God. But when I finally figured out that I was not following God and that my biggest problem was not just me, but my trust of Him, a whole different set of rules popped in. I had to come to this one, I had to grasp this one thing. If I believe He is who He says He is, then there is no sin on earth worth holding on to. None. If He is who He says He is, there is no sin worth holding on to. So either you know Him for who He actually is, or you don't. And you could tout all the scriptures all you want all day. You can memorize the Torah. You can the Pentateuch. You can do all of that. Heck, you could be able to quote the Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelations. You could know all the extra books that have never been included in this uh, encyclopedia we call the Bible. You could memorize it all from the beginning to the end. Your brain could be filled with it. None of it matters if you don't see who He is. If you believe, if you believe that your daily sin struggle, which we call, you need to take your sins to Him daily. If you believe that you have a daily sin struggle, I would ask you to not look so much at the sin that you're committing. Really take a look at how you view God. Take a look and see what you think about God. Because I think somewhere in there, you believe that God will, regardless, forgive anyway. And whether you want to believe this or not, subliminally, you're giving yourself license to continue doing in order to prove you're doing the exact opposite of shall we continue in sin that grace may abound. You are continuing in grace, hoping, continuing in sin, hoping that grace will abound. In fact, you are going so far as to think that continuing in sin will prove more grace. You are disproving everything about Christianity. You are using your weakness as your new God. Your current weakness is now God. And God is there for when it gets too much for you to be your bail. He's your bond servant. That's where God is today. He's not the one coming back to burn the earth up. He's not the one coming to separate the wheat from the chaff. He's not the one coming back to take his people from. He's not that one. He's not. You believe that God is who he says he is. You believe in a version of God that will placate to you and that will give you the all right and the okay to keep a little bit of yourself because he knows that's human nature. The Lord knows I got a Roman 9. I try, but he know when I slip up sometime and know if it's sometime I slip up. I'm not big on life coaches kind of thing, right? I'm not huge on it, but I'm sure they have a place for people, certain people. I understand that. But some of their mantras I can genuinely say makes a lot of sense because I learned this from a very young age. My mom can attest to this, right? And my mom used to tell me all the time when she would ask me to do something, every time I would say in jest, no, just in jest. Okay. This was in my head, it was in jest. I would say about 95% of the time when she told me to do something and I would just no, you know what would end up happening? I wouldn't do it. Just me joking about the no gave my mind license to put it in the back burner and not worry about it. I always did that was no. And it would be something I'd just not go back and do. I got in trouble so much for saying no because she knew the end result would be me not going to do it. Or how about this? When your kids, you ask them to do something and say, okay, I'll do it later. How many of them get back to the later? It gives their mind a license to make your instruction less important than their agenda. Should we ask God to take away everything in us that is not of Him, or should we give it up on our own? It should be both. You shouldn't want anything in you that's against Him. And it should be the instantaneous prayer the instant you met Him to get rid of everything that keeps you from Him. Of course, this goes back to if you see Him the way He should be seen. It should be what I know about, I'm giving up. What I don't know about, take. David said it too. He said, "If search me and see if there's any wicked way in me. You find anything that you need to find and get rid of, whatever it is." That's the death portion. Nobody in their sane mind keeps limbs of a dead person around. They don't keep the heart of the dead person. They don't keep the limbs. They don't keep the eyes. They don't keep anything of a dead person around, right? So if we don't keep anything of a dead person around, why would we seek to keep any of our old self around our new self? After a while, keeping that piece starts to stink up the whole house. It's a rotting piece of flesh. It's going to start stinking the whole place. It's going to bring in maggots. And before too long, thank you for clarifying, Bruce. And it's not about educated. You can take your time and type it out in as many texts as you need to. Um, I'm big on clarification. And sometimes people can say stuff and they just leave it and think that either they don't have enough time or space to put it all so that there's no equivocations about what you're saying. But I hear you. I understand. If you are keeping dead parts, you're a necrophiliac. That's what you are. You don't go say you're going to die to self and keep dead parts around. Say it's small. Say it's like a pinky toe. So you can't really see it, but you know something ain't right. Or a cuticle. Some small body part that you would think it's just not seen. When you say to the Lord that you're done and you're moving forward with a new life, it should be whatever you know you struggle with, you give to Him. And what you don't know you have an issue with, you give to Him. It really is a matter of giving when He brings something to your attention, a latent issue, you dump it. You don't then say, well, man, that's been a part of me for a long time, man. I don't give it up. He should just be able to highlight something and you open the door and it's chucked. But we don't do that because we don't think about God. We live today for self. We live for the comfort and ease. We live for a mindset that will give us an excuse. We will look at things like the statement, be perfect as I am perfect, as an impossibility because we don't trust God. We will run straight to the no, no. Remember, we're fleshly because we can't be perfect. No one was perfect but Jesus, and you're living His life, aren't you? If no one was perfect but Jesus, and He gave you His life, and that's where you dwell, you're not perfect. People will say, oh, that's blasphemy that you're saying that you're perfect. No, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I am perfect. I am telling you that Jesus' life is perfect. And since I died, I can't equate myself to anything. If I am dead, if I am dead, there is no way I can be calling myself perfect. I'm dead. I am, however, calling Jesus' life perfect. His life is perfect. And I'm placed in his life. So by all metrics, if I'm no longer here and my new life began in Christ, then by all metrics, I am perfect because of where I am, not because of who I am, but because of who He is. People don't want to accept that for some reason, even though it's in the book they say they believe. We prefer to hold on to all kinds of stupid stuff belonging to the flesh and run with it everywhere we go as an excuse for doing nonsense. We like doing that because why? It makes us feel more human. Now, you live in this flesh, obviously. It has a pull, obviously. But even then, He told you that He gave you a way out every time. Nothing can overcome you that isn't common to man. He said this, okay? This is not me. He said this. And a way out does not mean finding a back door back in. Hear me out. When He told you that He said, I've found a way, I have given you a way out, there is a way out. It does not mean then once you're out, you go find a back door or a broken window to get back into the location you are, assuming that God just going to save you back out of it again. That is continuing in sin, so grace may abound. Again, it comes back to your view of God. When you've created a God in your mind that is all humanistic love, you will be more than happy to give yourself all kinds of leeway. You have every option open to you at that point. You know, I'm tackling marriage on this week, right? I'm tackling this whole idea of marriage thing. And I'm going to be saying some stuff that's going to upset some people, and I don't really know how to avoid it. But one of the things I've realized is this. Um, there's so many avenues that we've taken man's approach to things on and ascribed it to God that it is almost impossible for a lot of people to release. But when you are delivered, I know that more demons come to try and tempt you, except that it mentioned even that in the book. It mentions that in the book. Hold on. In Luke, okay? Luke 11. So let's take a gander at something here real quick. I want to make sure I bring this up. Luke 11. Let's go to Luke 11 and start at 14, shall we? Because he addressed this exact same thing again in the book. In the same book, and he was casting out a demon, and it was mute. So it was when the demon had gone out that the mute spoke, and the multitudes marveled. But some of them said, he casts out demons by Beelzebub, the ruler of the demons. Others, testing him, sought for him a sign from heaven. But he, knowing their thoughts, said, to every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against itself, a house divided against a house falls. If Satan also divided against himself, how will his kingdom stand? Because you say, I cast out demons by Beelzebub. And if I have cast out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your sons cast them out? Therefore, you will be your judges. They will be your judges. But if I cast out demons with the finger of God, surely the kingdom of God has come upon you. When a strong man, fully armed, guards his own place, his goods are in peace. But when a stronger than he comes upon and overcomes him, he takes from him all his armor in which he trusted and divides his spoils. He who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me scatters. When a strong man, fully armed, guards his own palace, his goods are at peace. But when a stronger than he comes upon him and overcomes him, he takes from him all his armor in which he trusted and divides his spoils. Who is stronger than God? Who is stronger than God? What strong man can come to God's house and overtake him? So Ask yourself this question. If you find yourself being overcome by something other than the Holy Spirit, what does that tell you about your house? What does it tell you about your house? If no one, if no one is stronger than God, if nothing is stronger than God, if there is no entity, no spirit, nothing stronger than God, and you are in God's house because you have joined his family, you are now under his protection. How are any of your issues overcoming you while in that house? It tells me that you're probably not in the house. It tells me that you've been living in the same house that you've always lived in, but you put up a sign outside thinking, oh, as long as I put the house says God on it, it'll be fine. But you're still living in your home. Because let's just be honest and call the spade a spade. You like living there. It's familiar. You can change things just enough to make it look like you've done a whole lot of work. It ain't your house. He's not supposed to be living there anyway. It's supposed to be a broken down. It's supposed to be torn all the way down. It's supposed to be a gone house. You're supposed to be living in a whole nother location now. You technically should be in the witness protection program. You should be able to just avoid it. He said he made a way out. You seem to think that you need to continue it because it's part of who you are. The two can't live together. So if you're doing it, then you're telling yourself that you're bigger than God. So let's continue down. When an unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places seeking rest, and finding none, he says, I will return to my house from which I came. And when he comes, he finds it swept and put in order. Then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. You see, what we like to think is that if we just make things livable, we'll be okay. Clear out the house, but leave the door open. Then allow the demon back in to scope the place out and realize it's so much more room now that he brings them back in more so than before. You left the door open, you made more room, you did nothing to secure anything. Why? Because you didn't really believe anything that you said to begin with. You enter into this whole covenant thing with the concept that you are going to fall. You come in to a relationship with God knowing you're going to be unfaithful. It's prepped and planned in your mind. You left the door open. The house should have been sealed up tight. The door was open. Many believers enter into this walk with this concept that, hey, God knows I'll fail, but He'll forgive. Every day I struggle with sin, but He knows. Every day you struggle with sin, e- every day, you don't find a problem with that? You don't find a problem with everyday struggling with sin? Struggle to exert muscular energy as against a material force or mass, to be strenuously engaged with a problem, task, or undertaking, to have difficulty or make a strenuous effort against something. Struggle. Struggle. You struggle every day with sin? Don't know what to tell you then. That I really don't know what to tell you about that. I don't know how you get up knowing who God is and still struggle with the thing He defeated on the cross. I don't know how you say you live under the protection and the headship of God who defeated the thing you say you're struggling with. If that's the way it works for you, then there might be problems. He said specifically that that's not the life you're supposed to live. If it says that you're free, then you should be free, not not free with chains on. If you live with chains on, then you're not free. And if you took them off and you still have chains on, then you put them back on. Monica, ignore that. That's a Hebrew Israelite. Just ignore him. I'll block him in a minute. Um, which tells you that you don't really believe what he said. There is a disconnect that either you're not aware of or that you are aware of and that you embrace. But of all the things he said, never once did he ever say that that should be a struggle. Not once. So ask yourself the biggest question of all: what about God? What about God? Compared to your sin, what about God? Compared to your old man, what about God? Compared to offending, what about God? If anybody should have sway over you, and the one you should be concerned about offending, it should be God. But it's not. The majority of us don't care. We just don't care. We refuse to give him his space. We refuse to give him his place in our life. We refuse it. Remember, we spoke about pride on Friday, that there is a level of pride that keeps us from handing over all control. There's a portion of pride that is behind us saying that we have something that even God can't forgive. There is a portion of pride that says, yeah, he saved me, but that's pride. And the root of that particular pride is a lack of knowledge of who God actually is. Because in our world, we take him to be smaller than our sin. He is smaller than our sin, hence making our sin a reoccurring problem and a struggle. Exactly, Kim. We lose our minds when people talk about mom and dad and bra and sister and wife, but we ain't gonna do that for God. Come on, people. Come on. You're gonna say, "Oh, yeah, yes, your wife can fight. Okay, so she can defend herself. That's how you gonna. That's how you gonna view it. Really? Come on, people. Come on. Oh, God don't need defending. He don't need a whole lot of things. God don't need anything. He doesn't need anything. But our love for him should compel us to do everything. He does not need anything, but our love for him should compel us to do anything. And that means giving up everything. But we don't, because we don't see him that way. At least the majority of us don't see him that way. He's forgiving, he's loving, and he'll take what I give him. And he'll be happy about it. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not how he operates. Unfortunately, for people that think like that, I mean, give me a quick second here. I'm going back through this to make sure I can um, block this individual so they don't come back to the page. There you go. Anyhow, the topic popped up this weekend, and I figured I'd address it. Um, my only advice to you is, of course, of initially making sure you talk to the author about everything that you do, in everything you do. But more importantly, don't underestimate him. Put him in the place he belongs, which is at the head. Plain and simple. Tomorrow is the big topic. Tomorrow is the big topic. Tomorrow is the pornography topic. Tomorrow is the pornography topic. Pornography and men. The scriptures, Jennifer. It's called the scriptures. Pornography and men. I can't say that I will not be tackling on the women portion of this, because whether we want to admit it or not, the majority of the driving force of pornography is women. They may not be the participant on the outside of the act, but they are the driving factor in pornography. So it'll be something that I will have to talk about that portion of it, but it'll be about men's approach to pornography and escape from pornography, and how do you get out from being trapped with pornography. So if it goes a little longer tomorrow, please bear with me, because I want to make sure that I get fairly good details about it. Okay. Um, I want to make sure I go into a fair amount of detail. So, um, I hear that term a lot. Um, but I will part of that will be covered too. But I hear that term a lot, and I don't necessarily agree with that term. I don't really agree with the term. I'll tell you why tomorrow. No, no guest, just me. No guest. Same time as this show. It's just another topic tomorrow. Noon. Um, yeah. So just be sure you're here for that. Okay. Um, but this will be mostly a conversation to men about pornography. To men. If it helps females learn how to converse with men about a problem, if your hubby or your significant other or your children who are young boys have the problem, at least it'll give you something to approach it with. Um, give you an avenue of a conversation to it. Um, so just keep an ear out for it tomorrow. Okay. Just anyway. Um, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, as usually I tell you, take it up with the author. Um, my inbox is always still open, though. If you have other kinds of questions, I will do my best to give what I had been told by him, and then you can take that to him as well. Um, if you need a way to articulate what you need to take to him, inbox is open too. But I will always, just so you know, I will always direct you to going back to verify everything that you ask me about. I'm not opposed to answering a question. Um, love answering questions. I just want you to understand that after I've given you my answer, that in order for it to become true to you, it can't just come from me. My answer might be the catalyst for giving you that unction to go talk to him in detail about something. And in doing that, hopefully it gives you a method of how to talk to him and a consistency in talking to him. And pretty soon you won't need to come and ask me questions. It'd be straight downloads from him. That's the whole goal, is to make you the first line of contact for your own salvation with him. That's all I want. Okay, that's all I want. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you have to give you more of a direction. That'd be great. Um, but yeah, it's open. Um, we're almost to 8K in our group here, our little group called Straight Talk. We are moving up the line here pretty good. We are now at 7,100 subs. So the family is getting bigger. Um, oh, my email address. There it is there in the chat. straighttalkmb@outlook.com. You guys can inbox me whenever you want, however you want. Feel free. I check it fairly regular. I think I respond pretty easily to people and pretty quickly, but some days I get way too much on my plate and I don't get back to people instantaneously. So um, if I don't get back to you within a day, please don't hate. I just have a lot on my plate to deal with. So, but I will try as soon as it pops up to reply as much as I can. Um, wisdom is the only thing you really need, and that comes from only one person, and that's God. And wisdom is calling to you from the streets. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself.